Hello and welcome back. So this is going to be the final session on this part of the 12 bar blues. We're going to be moving on to the solos in the next couple of videos, but for now I've got one part of this piece I want to finish up, which is the piano part, because it's very formulaic. It just uses the dominants, it's got that static rhythm. So there's a couple of concepts I want to go over to discuss on how to make just like we did for the bass, how to make this a bit more fluid and interesting and throw in some more interesting concepts. So let's go over one or two of the concepts we're going to be talking about. So the first concept is voice leading, and as a basic rule of thumb, the key to voice leading is to have as little motion between chords, between notes as possible. So let's have a quick progression here. We'll have D minor, C, G7, C, and we'll make these all 7. So we'll have G major 7. So this is a 2-5-1 progression. Let's work out how we can voice this. So we'll have the bass progression going 2, 5, 1, which we would expect. So let's work out how to voice this using kind of block voicing. So we'll have this D minor 7 chord in root inversion. So just as is, going 1, 3, 5, 7. How do we move that over to the G chord? Well, the solution is with as little motion as possible. So the notes of the G major 7 chord are G, B, D and F. So we have a D and F, so let's just hold those over. Meaning if we want the two other notes, we're going to need a G and a B. So let's just have that in there. And even though kind of these notes are sitting on top of each other, if you have a look, the motion from this D here to this D is none. There is no motion. From F to F, no motion. And then from C down to B, that's just a semitone. And then A down to G, that's a tone. So that's just kind of stepwise motion, and that's what we want. Even if there's a little bit of grit here, that's fine. It sounds good in jazz. And then we can resolve using the same method. So if we have a look at what chords we have here, we have, let's see, what we need: a C, an E, a G, and a B. We can hold over that B because we already have one. Hold over that G because no motion is best motion. And then for the rest of the chord, we'll just have the E down here and the C. You can kind of see how these two top voices stay the same, and then this one drops down by a step, and this one drops down by a step as well, giving us a nice smooth motion. I'll just turn this up a sec. Lovely. So that's the first concept, which is voice leading as little motion in between the in the right hand as possible. Another concept I want to talk about is something called shell voicing. So this is, I'll zoom in on this one, is how you voice a chord a bit more appropriately. And there's a little rule for this which might help, which is 1 plus 3 or R plus 7. There we go. So in the bass we want the root in the third or the root in the seventh. So that would be either C and E, or C and the 7, which would be B flat. In the left hand, the right hand rather, we want the 3, the 5, and the extension. So what do I mean by that? So the 3 and the 5, that's quite easy to work out. That'll be 3 and the 5. And then any extensions that we have beyond this, we'll come on to extensions in a second. So let's do that, the same thing for this chord. Yeah, for the D, let's go for the opposite. Let's have the, no, actually, oh, this will work quite well. So we'll have the 1 and the 3. I'll zoom it out a bit for this bit. We'll have the root in the third here. Otherwise, we're going to have a massive jump if it was the flat 7. So we want this because that B steps nicely down to the B flat here. That's great. So that's showing that we know how to do smooth voice leading. And then we'll, I keep needing to zoom out. We'll add on the third on top of this, which will be C. That looks good to me. So we got the root and 7, root and third, root and 7, and that means that this voice drops down to this B, down to the B flat, and the bass just kind of jumps around as we would expect. That's great. Let's add in the extensions that we need here. So let's ditch the whole voicing for now. Let's go for just what the voice we need, the 3 and the 5. So that would be the F and the A. What do we need here? We need the G. No, we need the B and the D. And this is going to be a bit jumping around, so can we smooth this out at all? If we move this down, then that's just going to be all over the place. So I feel like that would work. Oh, we don't need the 7 here, flat 7, because this is a major 7 chord. I'm thinking of the piece that we got, so let's raise that up. Lovely. But we can add in some extensions, and extensions are quite complicated, but I'm going to only teach one major extension today, which is the 9 chord. This is the first kind of introduction to more complex jazz harmony, because the 9 will function exactly the same as the 7 chord. It has dominant function. So let's have a go at adding in the 9th. So if you had a G chord, that would be the note G, B, D, F, A. So let's add in that A. Which sounds alright, it's pretty jazzy. It's very much an acquired taste if you're used to traditional harmony, getting used to this, writing this stuff. You may go, oh no, that doesn't sound right, or that contradicts a rule that I learn. So have a play around with trying to find voices that you like. I don't like that B up there, I might drop that one down. Or just get rid of it entirely. I don't even need it, because I've got the 1 and the 3 here. So I don't need a B there, I could just go. That's quite nice. So that is pretty much all I wanted to cover for the complexity of the harmony. There is one other thing I want to mention, so I'll mention it ever so quickly, which is something called a line cliche, which is not as terrifying as I make it sound, which would be something like this. Ooh, what's happened there? And then I'll just swap those voices around so it's a bit easier to see. There we go. So it's a C chord where one of the voices moves up or down slightly. Very James Bond-esque, and this is a good way to fill in the voice, the kind of the gaps in the music. So if we had this in this part here, that was the F, so I'll add that in the second part. So we could have that step down. Let's just play around. Nah, that one doesn't work, but definitely that one. And it's just a line cliche, which is kind of connecting a chord using the inner parts moving. So, for example, just to make this interesting, you could have a C7 chord, a C augmented chord, a C add 6, and then go down to the, or you could go up 7. That would be the, in fact, let's go to the C flat 7. No, yeah, C. No, I see what it's doing. You don't call it the flat 7, you just call it the 7. Oh. So it would sound like this. would help if I actually flatten the 7th at the end. And then you've, by the end of that kind of line cliche, as they're called, you've made this triad dominant. So just something on moving part. We'll come back to that later. Let's get rid of this and go back to actually writing some blues. So have a quick breathe in, breathe out. Let's go for it. So here we have our chords so far, and we're going to change over all of these C7 chords for C9 chords, because we know that's going to work because C7 and C9 have the same function. This will take a second to change them all over, but it'll be worth it because it shows that we can use these extensions in our work. We can add in that more interesting jazz harmony. And when you do this, make sure you change it over for both the piano and the bass. You don't want to have it so that the bass is still playing the C7 chord and the piano is playing a C9 chord. Not because it will clash as much, although that can happen later on with some of our, if we do too much complicated stuff, but mainly because that will lose you marks because different chords, which one's the true one. So let's have a look at how we can voice these. So I like this for now. We have the 1 and the 7, the root and 7 in the left hand. That's what we wanted. And we want the 3 and the 5 and the extension. So we want the 9. So we have the 3 and the 5, which is the E and the G. And the 9 is going to be the D. So we could either have that D up here. Well, I'll mute these for now. And I'll put the piano up slightly. Oh, that's going to be too loud. But I think having that D all the way on the top is going to make it stand out a bit. So let's bury it down here. It's okay if it clashes ever so slightly. Turn the bass down as well. That sounds okay to me. So yeah, we'll have the extension there, the 3 there, and the 5 there, and the 1, 7 down here. So that's a shell voicing, as it's called. We'll go on to, actually, let's just adjust where we're going first. We'll go back to that voicing because I quite like it. And then we have this F chord. So let's use the same rule. What do we want in the bass? Well, if we have a look, we have a massive jump down here in the bass, which the bass is allowed to move around, but so does this flat 7. So I think it'll be much more smoother or more fluid and easier for the pianist if we go for the 1 and 3 here, because then this voice has only got jump down to here, which is just a lovely step, and this is quite an easy jump up. And then we can go back down to here as well. So this voice has descended, this one's gone up, and instead of jumping all over the place, the hand's just got kind of playing the in-between notes there. So that's great. Let's go for here. We need the A and the C. I think we'll have to jump that one down. And what extension do we need? Well, we don't need an extension because we're just playing the 7. But if you remember, we did get rid of that E flat here. So let's replace that F, which we don't need because it's down here. So we've got the 1 and the 3 in the bass. We got the 5 here and the 3 here. And then we got the 7, the flat 7, the E flat here. And that means that this G jumps up to this A, this D goes down to here, and this E only has to drop a semitone. Let's have a listen. Lovely. I've got a little plan for something that I've worked out for down here, so let's just go to this final section here. We know that we want this D down here because that sounded quite nice. And I'm just going to copy and paste this one in because this is the voicing I want leading into it because it works really nicely. And then we have our G chord. So what do we need? We need the 1 and the 5, the 1 and the 3, or the 1 and the 7 in the bass. So what do we have here? We have the 1 and the 7. We could just kind of we could have a... well, no. it would be the one. There we go. There we go. We got these kind of parallel thirds, but those are fine. But this is way too high, so let's voice this the way we've been voicing it so far. So what do we need? We've got the 1 and the 3 down here, so we're going to need the 3 and the 5. So that would be the B and the D. I think we can already tell that that D is going to have to come down. And we can drop this G because it's already down here, because we need the extension, which is the flat 7. So that will be F. Which I think this would work. But it's not particularly smooth. I guess it's fine because it's all by step, but that does mean it's kind of a bit in parallel. So it's not a major must change, but you could, where was this? This was the B. We could have that down here. Let's just have a listen to how that sounds. Oh, not the, well, no, you can't. Ah, no, because the B's down there. So, where was this? This was the B, wasn't it? Yeah. I can't actually remember what I had there now. Yeah, I think it was the B. You know, let's just drop that, because it's not going to go down here because we've got the B down there. So let's just go to a 2 voicing, 2 notes here, the flat 7 and the 5. And I'll come back to that later because I've got a second plan for that. So let's change over the harmony here. So I'm going to add in a bit of a line cliche, and I'm going to use an extra extension to do that. So I'm going to use the C7 down here. Actually, let's voice this quickly. So we've got the 1 and the 3 in the bass. And we'll do the same here. There we go. So we know that works because we've already done that before. But did I change over? Oh, no, I didn't change over this section. Aha. This is how we're going to end up. Perhaps might change it depending on what I do here. But I know that I'm going to make this a add 13. So it's either 13 or add 6, but because we've got the 7th in there, I'll call it add 13, which is essentially in a F major chord, that is going to be the note D. So let's have that D down here. We'll just put that in for now. And then we need the 3 and the 5 up here. So that will be F, not F, that'll be A and C. So let's try the C there. Actually, no, let's try it there. So and then, I know what I want to do. I've got a plan. I want this D here, this added note, to then resolve to a note down here and then move to a note here. That would be quite a nice progression. So that will be a D. Then we could go down to this C here. And then we could go to the... Well, it would be that B flat in the bass, I guess. So, yeah, we could move that down. Let's have a look. Yeah, that would work. So we'll get rid of this C hit up the top, because we don't want that complicating things. So now we have a direct line going D, C, B flat, and I've got that scalic motion that wouldn't be there otherwise, going from an F7 to an F7 chord. And just to fill in that gap, we'll have an F chord. Why not? And there's a couple of extra things we could do there, but that's just a little extra tension at the very least. To resolve us down towards that G chord, that C9 chord here. Just checking the voice leading. We could probably voice this slightly better, but I'm not going to spend too long on this because this video is getting longer than I intended, and I had something else I wanted to talk about in this video as well. But I think voicing is probably, actually just for now, I'm just going to put that down there just so it's slightly smoother. Or I could just copy and paste that, that'd be fine. Yeah, so there's one more thing I want to talk about the piano. So I said this is going to be the last one, but I've changed my mind, and we need to change up this piano rhythm because it's very, very formulaic and it's always the same every single bar. So we're going to come up with something more varied in the next part. But for now, let's just have a listen to how that sounds without the bass, without the melody. And then it will dissolve back to the top. So, sorry this is going to be quite a long one. I thought I could explain this quite quickly, but I think it's best to take some time to absorb some of this knowledge. So just a quick recap. When writing a chord, you want either the root and the 7, or the root and the 3rd in the left hand of the piano. You want the 3, that would be the 3 and the 5 in the right hand, and if you have an extension, add that in. So if you had a C9 chord, add in the D, and if you haven't put in the 7 because you've used the 1 and the 3, that's a good point to add in that extension. You can happily omit notes. There's some chords here that I haven't got some of the notes in, but I think it's always a good, and kind of you can drop down to 2 voices rather than 3 in the right hand. But I think it's always a good idea to try and keep that kind of stepwise motion, add in that 9th harmony, add in any extensions, and of course please do look at some extra harmonic things, because that can also impact your solos as well. So if you want some extra homework, I'm not sure why you would, but you can add in some 6ths, you could add in some altered chords, some upper structure triads, and line cliches. Those are some quick notes of how to get some quite interesting jazz harmony going on. But I hope this has been a bit more bit useful on how to voice out the chords, and at the very least turn all your 7th chords, or some of your 7th chords, into 9th chords, just for that extra bit of flavour. So I will see you in the next video for one more bit of piano writing.